Pay attention to this footage recovered from the engine room camera of a cargo ship called the MV Thessalia. You're looking at 23 crew members gathered in the engine room at 3:47 a.m. on February 12, 2024. They're not supposed to be there. The engine room isn't a gathering place. But look at their faces. They're terrified. They're holding tools, pipes, anything they could use as weapons. They're hiding from something. Now watch the doorway in the upper right corner of the frame. At 3:48 a.m., something enters the room. Not a wave, not equipment falling, something that moves with purpose. Something that shouldn't exist on a cargo ship in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. The camera keeps recording for another 4 minutes and 31 seconds. By the end, the engine room is empty. 23 people, gone. No bodies, no blood, no signs of struggle. The ship was found drifting 40 miles off the coast of Malta 3 days later. Engines still running. Navigation systems still active. Coffee still warm in the galley. But here's what made Interpol classify this case within 72 hours. The cargo manifest listed the Thessalia's payload as industrial equipment from a port in Libya. That was a lie. The ship was carrying archaeological artifacts from an illegal excavation site in the Sahara Desert. Artifacts from a tomb that had been sealed for 3,000 years. Whatever killed the crew of the Thessalia didn't come from the sea. They brought it aboard themselves. This is that story. February 9th, 2024. 11:30 p.m. Port of Misrata, Libya. The MV Thessalia takes on cargo under the cover of darkness. No customs inspection, no official documentation. The harbor master has been paid to look the other way. The ship is a 180-meter general cargo vessel, Greek-flagged, owned by a shell company registered in Panama. It makes runs between North Africa and Southern Europe, officially transporting machinery, textiles, agricultural equipment. Unofficially, it transports whatever its clients are willing to pay to move without questions. Tonight's cargo: 14 wooden crates, each approximately 8 feet long by 4 feet wide. The loading crew handles them carefully, too carefully for industrial equipment. One crate requires 6 men to lift, even with a crane assist. Captain Dimitris Andriadis, 56 years old, watches the loading from the bridge. He's been running questionable cargo for 20 years. He doesn't ask what's in the crates. He doesn't want to know. At 2:15 a.m. on February 10th, the Thessalia clears Libyan waters, heading north toward its destination, a private dock near Catania, Sicily. Estimated arrival, February 13th. The ship never arrives. At 6 a.m. on February 15th, the Maltese Coast Guard receives an automated distress signal from a vessel drifting in international waters. The ship is identified as the MV Thessalia. No voice communication, no mayday call, just the automated beacon, triggered when the ship's navigation system detected it had been stationary for over 48 hours. The Coast Guard cutter Melita reaches the Thessalia at 9:15 a.m. What they find makes them immediately call for military backup. The ship is intact. Engines running, lights on, no damage to the hull, no signs of piracy or attack. But the crew is gone. All 23 of them. Vanished from a ship in the middle of the sea with no lifeboats deployed and no evidence of anyone going overboard. The Melita's commander, Captain Anna Vella, boards the Thessalia at 9:47 a.m. Her report, filed 6 hours later, contains a phrase that would be repeated throughout the investigation. It's like they just stopped existing. Before we go any further, you need to know who was on that ship. Because whatever happened to them, they deserved better than to disappear without anyone knowing their names. Captain Dimitris Andriadis was 56, a veteran merchant sailor from Piraeus, Greece. He'd been at sea since he was 18. 3 children, 2 grandchildren. His wife, Maria, said he was planning to retire after this year. 1 more season, then he'd finally stay home. First Officer Yusuf Hassan was 41, Somali-born, naturalized Italian citizen. He'd worked his way up from deckhand over 15 years. His daughter was starting university in September. He'd been saving for years to pay her tuition. Chief Engineer Alexandros Petrov was 48, Bulgarian, the man responsible for keeping the Thessalia running. His crew called him the Doctor because he could fix anything. He'd served on this ship for 12 years. It was more home to him than his apartment in Varna. Deckhand Maria Santos was 29, from the Philippines, one of 3 women in the crew. She sent 70% of her salary home to her parents every month. She was engaged to be married next Christmas. Cook Ibrahim al-Rashid was 62, the oldest crew member, Lebanese. He'd been cooking on cargo ships for 40 years. Everyone on board loved his food. Captain Andriadis once said Ibrahim's lamb stew was the only good thing about long voyages. 23 people in total. Greeks, Italians, Filipinos, Egyptians, Bulgarians, Lebanese, Somalis. A floating community from all over the world, brought together by the sea. They took a job transporting cargo they weren't supposed to ask about. They didn't know they were carrying something that should have stayed buried in the desert for another 3,000 years. Captain Anna Vella's boarding team consists of 8 personnel. Standard procedure for a vessel in distress. They clear the ship deck by deck, compartment by compartment. What they find, or don't find, defies explanation. The bridge is fully operational. Navigation screens active. Autopilot engaged. Captain Andriadis' coffee mug sits next to the helm, still half full. The logbook shows the last entry at 3:41 a.m. on February 12th. All normal. Seas calm. ETA, Catania, unchanged. 6 minutes before the engine room footage begins. No distress call was made. No alarm was triggered. Whatever happened, it happened fast. The crew quarters are exactly as you'd expect for a ship at sea. Bunks made. Personal photos on walls. Maria Santos's engagement ring sits on her nightstand. She took it off when working, didn't want it damaged. She never put it back on. In the galley, Ibrahim's lamb stew is still on the stove. The burner has been turned off. Someone switched it off before leaving. But the pot is full. A meal prepared for 23 people that no one ever ate. The cargo hold is where the investigation takes a turn. The 14 crates from Misrata are secured exactly as they were loaded. Straps tight, no shifting. Professional work. But one crate, crate 7, according to the manifest, has been opened. Not broken into. Opened. The lid removed and set aside carefully. Whatever was inside is gone. The manifest lists crate 7's contents as stone statuary, origin unknown. That's not what the recovery team finds inside the empty crate. They find residue, organic material, something that the forensic team would later identify as desiccated biological matter consistent with mummification processes. There was never a statue in crate 7. There was a body. At 2:30 p.m., the investigation team accesses the Thessalia's security footage. Most cameras show nothing unusual. Crew going about their routines, normal operations. Then they reach the engine room footage from February 12th. At 3:41 a.m., the same time as the last logbook entry, the ship's lights flicker. All of them, simultaneously. Over the next 6 minutes, crew members begin gathering in the engine room. Not calmly, they're running, grabbing tools, barricading the door. By 3:47 a.m., all 23 crew members are inside the engine room. Captain Andriadis is shouting orders. Chief Engineer Petrov is trying to seal the main hatch. They're trapped. They're hiding. And then, at 3:48 a.m., something enters through a ventilation shaft that should be too small for a human body to fit through. I need to stop here and explain something about what was supposed to be in that cargo hold, because this case doesn't make sense without understanding what the Thessalia was really carrying. 3 weeks before the ship disappeared, an illegal excavation team working in southern Libya made a discovery that would eventually cost 23 people their lives. The site was 400 kilometers south of Misrata, in a region of the Sahara that had been flagged by satellite imaging as a potential archaeological zone. The team, funded by a European antiquities dealer and staffed by local laborers, was looking for anything valuable enough to sell on the black market. On January 22nd, they found a tomb. Not Egyptian, not Roman, not anything that fit the known archaeological record of the region. The architecture was older, much older, decorated with symbols that the team's consultant, a disgraced former professor named Dr. Heinrich Vogel, couldn't identify. The tomb had been sealed, deliberately, with stones that showed tool marks from bronze implements, dating the closure to approximately 1000 BCE. Someone went to great effort to lock this tomb 3,000 years ago. Dr. Vogel recommended caution. He wanted to document the site properly, bring in more experts, understand what they were dealing with. The funding source disagreed. They wanted the contents extracted and shipped immediately, before Libyan authorities discovered the dig. Inside the tomb, the team found 14 objects. 13 of them were artifacts: jewelry, pottery, ceremonial items made of gold and bronze. The 14th was a sarcophagus, not a decorated Egyptian coffin. A plain stone container, sealed with lead and inscribed with symbols that Dr. Vogel said looked like warnings. The team opened it anyway. Inside was a body, preserved. Not mummified in the Egyptian tradition, something different. The skin had darkened to near black. The features were still visible, and according to Dr. Vogel's notes, recovered later from his laptop, the body's eyes were open. It looked, Vogel wrote, like it was waiting. The excavation team loaded all 14 objects into crates and transported them to Misrata. Dr. Vogel stayed behind to document the tomb. He was found dead 3 days later. Heart attack, according to the local coroner. He was 43 years old with no history of cardiac problems. The 14 crates were loaded onto the MV Thessalia on February 9th. 3 days later, every person on that ship had vanished. And crate 7, the one containing the sarcophagus, was empty. I need to describe what the engine room camera recorded. The footage has been classified, but investigators who've seen it have given detailed accounts. The 23 crew members are pressed against the far wall of the engine room. Captain Andriadis stands at the front, holding a fire axe. Chief Engineer Petrov has a wrench. Others hold whatever they could grab: pipes, tools, fire extinguishers. They're watching the door. They've barricaded it with equipment, cases. For 47 seconds, nothing happens. You can see their chests heaving. Maria Santos is crying. Ibrahim al-Rashid has his eyes closed, lips moving, praying. Then the lights flicker again. The ventilation grate in the upper corner of the room, a space maybe 18 inches across, bends outward, metal groaning. Something is pushing through from the other side. The camera angle doesn't capture what emerges clearly. The resolution is industrial grade, not high definition. The lighting is harsh, creating shadows. But what the investigators describe is this: a shape. Humanoid, but wrong. Too long in the limbs. Moving in a way that suggests joints bending in directions they shouldn't. It doesn't drop into the room. It flows, like liquid finding its shape. Captain Andreadis swings the axe. The footage shows him making contact. The shape recoils, and for a moment, it seems like they might have a chance. Then the lights go out. The camera has night vision capability. It switches automatically when the lights fail. In the green-tinted footage, you can see the crew scrambling, screaming. The audio picks up sounds that investigators have described as difficult to listen to. Movement, fast movement, something passing through the frame faster than the camera can track. When the lights come back on at 3:49:22, 3 crew members are gone, just gone. The others haven't moved from their defensive positions. They didn't see their colleagues leave. They just turned around and 3 people had vanished. Over the next 3 minutes, the pattern repeats. Lights flicker. Something moves in the shadows, never fully visible, never completely captured by the camera. And when the lights stabilize, fewer people remain. Captain Andreadis keeps fighting. The footage shows him swinging at something off camera at 3:41 a.m. He's pulled into the darkness at 3:51:03 a.m. His axe clatters to the floor. He doesn't scream. Chief Engineer Petrov is one of the last. He's backed into a corner, wrench raised, shouting in Bulgarian. At 3:52:01 a.m., something reaches into frame. A limb, dark and elongated, with too many joints, and pulls him upward toward the ventilation shaft. The shaft that's 18 inches across. His body shouldn't fit. It does. Maria Santos is the last person visible on the footage. She's not fighting. She's not screaming. She's standing in the center of the engine room, alone, staring at something off camera. Her lips are moving. The audio analysis would later determine she was saying one word over and over. Beautiful. Then she walks toward whatever she's looking at. Calm, almost peaceful. She steps out of frame at 3:52:18 a.m. The camera records an empty engine room for another 2 minutes and 13 seconds before the footage ends. 23 people, gone in less than 5 minutes. No bodies, no blood. Nothing left behind except Maria Santos's engagement ring on her nightstand and Ibrahim al-Rashid's lamb stew cooling on the stove. The investigation into the MV Thessalia has been ongoing for 11 months. Interpol, the Maltese Maritime Authority, the Greek Coast Guard, and intelligence agencies from 6 countries have been involved. The case has been classified at the highest levels. Here's what they know. The archaeological site in Libya has been sealed. Concrete poured into the tomb entrance. Armed guards posted. No one goes in. No one goes out. Dr. Heinrich Vogel's notes have been analyzed by experts in ancient languages. The symbols on the sarcophagus aren't warnings in the traditional sense. They're instructions. How to contain something. How to keep it sleeping. The excavation team broke those containment protocols when they opened the sarcophagus. Whatever was inside had been waiting for 3,000 years. The European antiquities dealer who funded the dig has disappeared. His accounts have been emptied. His properties have been abandoned. Interpol has issued a red notice, but no one expects to find him. The 13 remaining crates from the Thessalia were seized by Maltese authorities. The artifacts inside are being studied, but carefully. No one wants to make the same mistake twice. The engine room footage has been shown to exactly 14 people. All of them have signed non-disclosure agreements that carry criminal penalties for violation. 3 of those people have since requested psychological counseling. Captain Anna Vella, the Maltese Coast Guard officer who first boarded the Thessalia, has not returned to active sea duty. She works a desk job now. In her official statement, she wrote, "I've been at sea my whole career. I've seen drownings, accidents, piracy. I've never seen anything like this. The ocean didn't take those people. Something else did. The families of the 23 crew members have been told that their loved ones were lost at sea due to circumstances under investigation. No bodies have been recovered. No death certificates have been issued. Maria Andriadis, Captain Dimitris's wife, still calls the Greek Maritime Authority every week, asking if there's any news. There never is. Yusuf Hassan's daughter started university in September. She's studying maritime law. She wants to understand what happened to her father. Maria Santos's fiancé flew to Malta when he heard the news. He sat in the Coast Guard office for 3 days, waiting for someone to tell him something. Eventually, they showed him her engagement ring, recovered from her nightstand. He wears it on a chain around his neck now. The MV Thessalia itself has been impounded in a Maltese naval facility. No one is allowed aboard. The cargo hold has been sealed. But here's what keeps the investigators awake at night. Crate 7 was empty when they found it. The sarcophagus was gone. Whatever was inside had gotten out. The footage shows it taking 23 people. It doesn't show it leaving the ship. February 9th, 2024. A cargo ship called the MV Thessalia takes on 14 crates from an illegal excavation in Libya. February 12th, 2024. At 3:47 a.m., 23 crew members gather in the engine room, armed with whatever they can find, hiding from something that shouldn't exist. At 3:52 a.m., the last of them disappears. Vanished. No bodies, no blood, no explanation. The ship drifts for 3 days before anyone finds it. Engines running, lights on, coffee still warm. The cargo manifest said, industrial equipment. The truth was ancient artifacts from a tomb that had been sealed for 3,000 years. Sealed because someone back then knew exactly what they were locking away. The excavation team opened that seal. They put what they found on a ship, and everyone on that ship is gone. The footage from the engine room shows something that investigators won't describe on record. Something with too many joints. Something that moved through an 18-inch ventilation shaft with human bodies. Something that made Maria Santos stop fighting and call it beautiful. Crate 7 held a sarcophagus. The sarcophagus held a body. The body held something that had been waiting 3,000 years. Now it's awake. The Thessalia is impounded. The tomb is sealed. The footage is classified. The families have been told nothing. But the thing that took those 23 people, where did it go? The footage shows it coming aboard. It doesn't show it leaving. The ship is still sitting in that naval facility, sealed, guarded. Nobody goes aboard anymore. But sometimes, the guards say, when it's late and quiet, they hear sounds from inside. Movement. Like something large, navigating narrow spaces. They've requested transfers, all of them. Command keeps denying the requests. There's nothing on that ship, they're told. It's been searched. It's empty. It wasn't empty on February 12th. Captain Dimitris Andriadis, First Officer Yusuf Hassan, Chief Engineer Alexandros Petrov, Maria Santos, Ibrahim Al-Rashid, and 18 others who deserved to come home. They took a job moving cargo they weren't supposed to ask about. They didn't know they were transporting something that should have stayed buried. Something ancient, something patient, something that had been waiting 3,000 years for someone to open the wrong door. The tomb in Libya is sealed with concrete now. But the thing that was inside, it's not in Libya anymore. It's somewhere on the Mediterranean. Maybe still on that ship. Maybe not. And the last word Maria Santos said before she disappeared wasn't a scream, wasn't a prayer, wasn't a plea for help. It was beautiful. That's what makes this case impossible to forget.